officially declaring it open and also extending a word of welcome to all our members. As you all know from our program, today we are dealing with three issues. It will be the minutes, and then receive the APP from the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, and then just get an update on the progress thus far on our trip. Then let's without any waste of time, also extend a word of welcome to all our guests on the platform and our parliamentary staff, but also the media stream and the PMG. I saw them. Let's then flag those minutes of the last meeting, Committee Secretary. Honorable members, we are dealing with the minutes, but the minutes of the 3rd of May, 2023, where we received the presentation on the Stratton and the APP from the Department of Public Service and Administration, the Public Service Commission, the National School of Government, and the Center of Public Service Innovation. Those are the members that were present in the meeting. Those are the apologies that we received. And then the guests were led by the Minister of Public Service Administration, Noxolo Cubitt, and that was the team from ourselves, and also then the opening was led by Honorable Khai. He led the presentation of the Department of Public Service Administration. Then I took over thereafter, and then we adopted the minutes of the 26th of April, 2023, and then the proceeding unfolded where the opening remarks were done by the Minister and the Director General, led the presentation. Those were the issues that were covered by the department as presentation. And then following that, it was the Public Service Commission, the National School of Government, then the Center for Public Service Innovation, and a reflection by honorable members on the key issues that were raised and observation. Those were the deliberations that were made by members. I guess thus far there is no correction to be made. If that assertion is correct, let us then also note the issues that were raised in respect of those institutions that made the presentations, the observation made, and then recommendations that were made by the committee in respect of the Department, Public Service Commission, National School of Government, and the Center for Public Service and Innovation. Those were the issues that were canvassed. And then the meeting was adjourned at 13 o'clock. In the absence of any, Honorable Khan, I see your hand is up.
No, I'm raising my hand to move for the adoption of the minutes, Honorable Chair, and also We had agreed in the meeting that DPSA would send responses. Because of the time constraints, we couldn't get all the responses to our questions. Thank you so much.
Indeed, Honorable Khai, Honorable Lund.
Thank you, Chair. If you can just quickly scroll up right to the attendees, I'm more than happy to second Honorable Khai, but I do think Honorable Brauterset would appreciate it if you can just correct his affiliation. Going forward, that might be more advantageous to have not an ANC next to your name, but something else.
I agree.
And I'm sure Honorable Matavula would probably join us soon, but I think she's also not yet there where she wants to be.
Thank you, Honorable Lord, for seconding the mover by Honorable.
Just a question, where will Honorable Lord be going to the front?
Thank you, Honorable members. The minutes are therefore duly adopted at the minutes of the 3rd of May 2023. I note that the Deputy Minister has joined us. Let me take this opportunity to extend a special word of welcome to Honorable Deputy Minister Pinky Kekana, and by so doing also then just to before we give over to her for opening remarks, let's note the apologies, Committee Secretary. Any apologies that you have received?
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members and colleagues. We did not receive any apology. The only apology that we have is for Honorable Lund, which is, we know it's a standing apology.
Honorable Lund?
I mean, Honorable Landsman.
The Honorable Moshodi's apology, was it related to today?
No.
Okay.
No,
or
no,
not?
it was last week, then also next week.
Yeah, she was not well yesterday.
Okay.
Because
we haven't received. I will check with her.
Okay, that's fine. Then other members, having dealt with that item, let's then formally hand over to the Deputy Minister, Pinky Kekana, the reins to give us an opening remarks. Over to you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members. We thought we are not going to say much this morning, but just to allow the department to present to you the APPs and then be able to engage thereafter on what clarities that members may be seeking. But just safe to say, the minister is engaged on other things and the members of the portfolio are now aware, or select committee, let me put it right. Members of the select committee are now aware that we are a stand-alone department. So planning, monitoring, and evaluation, it's a standalone department. So it means our focus going forward is going to be on national planning for the 3 spheres of government. That's one of the things that the minister will also share with you, so that we make sure that the planning of the entire government, the 3 spheres, is going to be focused on our department. That's what do the monitoring and evaluation of the 3 spheres and our entities. One of the things that also prompted the president to do this is because there's some lack of coordination and improvement on the implementation of the National Development Plan. We're only left with 7 years, if members can look at, especially in us meeting the 2030 targets. So we think with this approach, we will be able to reprioritize, to have departments to make sure that we have one plan that speaks to the entire government, so that we're able to be responsive to some of the challenges that we are confronted with. But this is something that we'll be sharing not so long. The minister will be leading this process once we are done with some of the things, to make sure that even the select committee and the portfolio committee in Parliament are on board on our approach in as far as planning, monitoring, and evaluation are concerned. So thank you very much, Chair. But let me allow the DG and his team to present to the portfolio, to the select committee. I'll be here throughout until all our presentations are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. DG, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, Chair of the session, members of the Select Committee, the DM who's leading our delegation. Chair, let me indicate that we also have the DDGs on board, and I will ask the DDGs at some point to speak to their areas when we respond to questions, of course, with your permission. So on that note, I will ask Mr. Clement Madale to take us through the presentation, and we'll be ready to take the questions thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, DG.
Good morning, Chairperson of the Select Committee, members of the Select Committee, Deputy Minister, and colleagues. I'm sharing the presentation. I'm not sure if it's visible.
It is visible. If you can just show your face for record purposes, Clement Madale.
I hope I'm visible. I'm not a robot.
You are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll share again. It seems to be not moving. The technology is failing me a bit, I hope. Is it visible, Chair?
It is, Mr. Madale.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
With your permission, Chair, our presentation will cover the mandate of the department. We'll deal with the core functions. We'll also look at the strategic thrust of the department, being our vision, mission, and value statements, as well as our strategic plan impact and outcome statements, the MTSF priorities, and then program overview and deliverables, as well as detailed outputs and outcome in the annual target of the APP. I'll then, with your permission, allow the CFO to speak on the financials and the financial slide. Chair, having said that, the DPME mandate mainly centers around 6 core areas. The first one being the institutionalization of planning. The second one being focusing on long-term planning, that is charting the development of the country's trajectory. We also look at medium and short-term planning by coordinating planning systems within government to ensure alignment of plans and that they are of quality. We then monitor the implementation of the NDP through the MTSF. We evaluate critical government programs with the intention to inform planning, monitoring, as well as interventions and budget prioritization where required. We also do interventions on behalf of cabinet and the president when so required. So as the name of our department suggests, we are the planning, monitoring, and evaluation department. So those are our three core functions. Our vision as captured in our strategic plan, which was revised last year, is to be a leader and catalyst in achieving national developmental outcomes and impact on society. On the other hand, our mission is to develop and coordinate evidence-based planning, monitoring, and evaluation of developmental outcomes and impact. We want to be client-focused in terms of our values, but most importantly, we want to be accountable and be a learning organization. In terms of our strategic thrust, our impact statement is to improve the country's developmental outcomes as envisaged in the National Developmental Plan through effective implementation of the medium-term strategic framework 2019-2024 as revised. In the strategic plan 2020-2025, we have identified 5 outcomes. The first being an efficient and effective department, which is characterized by good corporate governance and ethical leadership. The second outcome is long and medium-term developmental agenda being institutionalized into functional and integrated government planning system. We also want to ensure that citizens and stakeholders participate in contributing to the implementation of the NDP through the MTSF. We also ensure that government programs are monitored for improved accountability and service delivery, and also to ensure that evidence to support the country's developmental agenda is generated. In terms of the priorities of the 6th administration, we are aware that the 6th administration has identified 7 key priorities, one being a capable, ethical, and developmental state, 2 being economic transformation and job creation, 3 being education, skills, and health, the 4th being consolidating the social wage through reliable quality basic services, the 5th is spatial integration, human settlement, and local government. 6th being social cohesion and safe communities. And number 7 being a better Africa and a better world. In addition, the APP focuses on SONA commitments that are pronounced by the president. So in that regard, we do monitor whether those commitments are being implemented and report progress thereof. My technology is again failing me, Chair. It's refusing to move. I'll stop sharing and try and share again.
Okay. Is it still okay?
Chairperson, maybe Mr. Madali must switch off the camera.
Yes, I suspect so.
Like that.
I suggest that.
Yes, Chair, with your permission.
Ale?
Okay, I'll switch it off. It's still refusing to move.
Let's check with the committee secretary Enrico. Can they help?
Chairperson?
Yes,
No, it's fine. Enrico will flight it.
yes, but Mr. Madali will definitely then indicate where he is so that at least we are able to follow.
We're on slide 7. If you can go to slide. Go to slide 8. Thank you very much. Chair, in terms of our work, we are organized in 5 branches. Branch 1 being administration. Administration consists of ministry, the departmental management, which is the office of the DG, under which there is risk management, internal audit, and office of the CFO. We also have corporate services, which has strategy and communication, human resource, as well as general corporate services and information communication and technology. Next slide. The second branch, which we call 2A, is the NPC Secretariat, which is organized in terms of sectors. In the main, they have got 4 sectors, which focuses on the economy, social protection, governance and research, partnerships and development. And then we've got program 2B, which is planning coordination. The program is made up of the planning alignment, planning coordination, resource planning, as well as spatial planning. Next slide. Then we have got program 3, which is sector monitoring. Sector monitoring is mainly the branch that is responsible for frontline services. It is made up of the office of the DTG, as well as outcomes monitoring and intervention support. Then we have got program 4, which is rather public sector monitoring. Under public sector monitoring, we've got public sector monitoring and support, public sector capacity development, frontline monitoring, capacity development coordination, as well as the focus on priority 1, which is a capable developmental state. Next slide. Our last program is evaluations, evidence and knowledge systems. It's made up of evaluations, and they've got a chief directorate responsible for research and knowledge management, as well as a chief directorate responsible for data integration and analysis. Next slide. Coming to the deliverables, program 1, administration. Next slide. This branch mainly support MTSF priority 1, which is a capable, ethical and developmental state. The outcomes supported is an efficient and effective department characterized by good corporate governance and ethical leadership. Here, our focus for the 2023-24 is to ensure that we continue with unqualified audit opinion by ensuring that our management practices are compliant. We have also identified the need to do disaster management and risk assessment to ensure that we are always prepared for disasters. We also are focusing on recruitment that is targeted towards the youth at 35%, people with disabilities at 2%, and women at 50%, particularly at SMS level. We also want to automate our business processes to enhance our efficiency and effectiveness. We want to use our procurement spend to target the previously disadvantaged, mainly women 40%, youth 30%, and people with disabilities at 7%. We will also continue to ensure that our suppliers are paid within 30 days. Our current average is about 10 days after receipt of a valid invoice. Next slide. The next one is Program 2A, which is the National Commission Secretariat. Next slide. The National Commission Secretariat support all MTSF priorities. Their main focus is on long-term planning, and also to ensure that evidence is generated through research to ensure that planning is informed by evidence. They also have the responsibility of engaging stakeholders and citizens to ensure that we garner support for the implementation of the NDP. The key focus for the 2023-2024, it will be to continue to institutionalize long-term planning. They will also focus on conducting research with a focus on small subsets of priorities in which to play leadership and coordination role, with emphasis on strong industrial and economic policy focus, including consequently influencing national skills development, training, education, labor and social policy. They will support government in defining and focusing on key priorities through research. They will monitor the implementation of the NDP and of course engage with society and stakeholders. Next slide. Our program 2B, which is National Planning Coordination. Next slide. The overview of their performance for the 2023-2024. The program support all 7 MTSF priorities. In line with the integrated strategic plan of the DPME, the branch contributes to improve country developmental outcomes as envisaged in the NDP through effective implementation of the MTSF 2019-2024 as revised. Their key strategic focus for 2023 will be the promulgation of the national planning legislation. Hopefully, they will be able to put it through the parliamentary process, the alignment of the planning and budgeting processes, to integrate the DDM as a primary planning tool in the system of planning, that is the one plan. They will also focus on strategic plans and APP of departments in terms of assessing them for alignment with the revised framework for strategic plans and APP, as well as the MTSF. They will also focus on ensuring that APPs are geospatially referenced, as well as to automate the planning system to make it easy for department and institutions to do their planning. Next slide. The next program, which is program 3, is sector monitoring services. Next slide. The overview of the performance of this branch is that the branch supports all MTSF priorities. The outcomes that are supported as per our strategic plan are improved accountability of government in the implementation of service delivery programs and projects. They are supposed to ensure improved government planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, as we know that the evidence that is collected through monitoring is used to feed back into the planning and implementation process. Their targets for 2023-24 mainly will be the production of biannual integrated MTSF monitoring reports. These reports normally serve in cabinet to inform cabinet about the progress that government is making in the implementation of the priorities. They will also conduct the midterm review of government performance. They will use the local government management improvement model to support municipalities in terms of strengthening their management practices. They will also produce progress reports on the implementation of Operation Phakisas. They will look at assessment of performance of targeted interventions in the following areas, amongst others. That is gender-based violence, interventions aimed at enhancing artisans' intake activities, food nutrition and security, progress on the cannabis regulation and legislation framework, progress report on climate change and just transition, government business incentive systems linked to the master plan dashboard. They will also look at issues related to network infrastructure and also industrial parks assessments to determine their contribution. I must say that these are the key things that they've identified for assessment on progress made. There might be some that come in between as might be required from time to time. Next slide. This is public sector monitoring and capacity development. Next slide. The overview of the performance of this is that they support all priorities. They ensure that government programs are monitored for improved accountability. Their targets for 2023-24 will be to produce 2 monitoring reports on ministerial performance agreements. My apologies for the spelling there. And assessment implementation reports. They will also produce reports on the implementation of DG and HOD performance agreements. They will produce report. They will conduct frontline monitoring and produce report, which will be disaggregated according to the DDM. They will also produce a quarterly report on the performance of the presidential hotline. This is where members of the public lodge complaints and the department facilitate the resolutions of those complaints. They will therefore monitor the progress in the implementation thereof. They will also produce 2 reports on performance and capacity of provinces, as well as selected SOEs. One of their key responsibilities to develop a capacity development plan, which is implemented to capacitate various levels of the state in terms of PME. They will also produce report on the implementation of the anti-corruption strategy, as well as focus on socio-economic analysis of the DDM program in the current financial year. Next slide. The last program, Chair, it's evaluations, evidence and knowledge systems. Next slide. The overview of their performance is as follows. They support all 7 priorities. The outcome directly supported by the branch is improved government planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and citizen oversight. Their targets for 2023 is to produce evidence and reports related to planning, monitoring, and evaluation. They will produce 4 evaluation reports. They will conduct 2 research assignments, as well as develop the development indicators for the financial year. This is a report that they produce on an annual basis. They will also continue with the development of a central database and analytical systems, which will enhance data harvesting and analysis in order to support planning and implementation monitoring. The next slide. Next slide is the financial slide, and with your permission, Chair, I'll now hand over to the CFO to take the committee through the financial position of the department. Thank you.
Mr. Madales, CFO.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to the members, to the DM and the DG and the colleagues. I will be presenting. Can Mr. Madale move? Can we move the slide to slide 25? We are showing the budget allocation of the department for 2023-24 financial year. In our presentation, we've just indicated how much the department was allocated in 2022-23, and then we're also showing the outer years of the MTF, which is 24-25 and 25-26. However, in the presentation, we will be focusing more on 2023-24 financial year. The department has been allocated a budget of 475 million, and that budget is appropriated as follows. Under administration, we have 193 million. Under national planning coordination, the total for the sub-programs is 84.6 million. Under sector monitoring, we've got 69.5 million. Under public sector monitoring and capacity development, we have been allocated 85.5 million. Under evidence and knowledge systems, we allocated 43 million. That gives us a total of 475. The budget for 2023-24 was reduced by 5.5 million compared to the 2022-23 budget allocation, and that represents 1% of the budget shortfall from last year's budget. We currently envisage that we're going to have a shortfall on the 2023-24 budget on COE due to the wage negotiations for 2023-24 that has been agreed with Labour. In terms of economic classification, the budget is appropriated as follows. Compensation of employees, we are allocated 322.6 million. For goods and services, we're allocated 147.9 million. For payment of capital assets, it's 5.1 million. For transfers and subsidies, the members would see that there is no amount allocated. Normally, that is used for payment of leave gratuities, and we only allocate through a virement or a shift of funds as and when the department has paid leave gratuities to exiting employees. I will not go through slide 26 and 27, Chairperson, because it's a depiction of a graphical depiction of the budget allocation in terms of percentages of how much each program is allocated. But just on a quick note, administration is 40% of the allocation. National planning and coordination is 18%. Sector monitoring is allocated 15%, public sector monitoring and capacity development 18%, and evidence and knowledge systems 9%. The other graph is showing allocation per economic classification, which is compensation of employees 68%, goods and services 31%, and 1% for capital payments. Thank you, Chairperson and the members.
Thank you, CFO, for taking us through the department's budget. Let's then take this opportunity to invite members of the select committee for any engagement on the presentation as led by the DM, clarification questions, input, engagement. Am I audible?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Let's give over to, I've noted team, I've noted Honorable Khai. I've noted, let's move in that fashion. Honorable Patterson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Chairperson, you know, I'm in a place with poor reception, but if I have a problem, please let me know, and I will post my questions in the group like I did last time.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just have 5 questions. So the questions with reference to, you know, I've been looking through the budget itself. And with reference to table 9.1, there is a decline of research projects, stakeholder engagements, and assessment reports that are vital to inform the direction of DPME. And I would just like to know why there has been this decline. We've gone down from 4 research projects a year down to 1 in many instances. So the second question is there is a top-heavy expenditure on administration as opposed to capacity development, and it seems to me that the department's priorities are skewed towards administration and staff employment as opposed to actual capacity programs in terms of enabling the state and making it a capable state. So if I could just give comment on that. And then question 3 and 4 are interlinked. So this department is responsible for planning, monitoring, and evaluation, but not for implementation. So I would like to know if the department can respond to this in writing, because I understand this will require a bit of work. But after the PME process, the planning and monitoring evaluation process, that the department has followed since, let's say, 2019, let's set the parameter there, 2019. How many recommendations has the department made to client departments since 2019? So after they've looked at the department and they've done planning, monitoring, and evaluation studies on that department, how many recommendations have they made to those departments? And then in the same period, can they comment on how many of those client departments have actually implemented those recommendations? In other words, how effective is their work been in terms of the client departments actually doing what was asked? And then finally, the last question is, and once again, this will be a question they can either respond to now or later in writing, but has the department ever conducted a study to establish, and this is important, on a percentage basis, how many of the goals of the NDP have been achieved? So, for instance, since the start of the publication of the NDP to now, are we 30% of the way there, 40% of the way there? Are we 50, 60% of the way there? And if the department has never done such a study to say that as of 2023, we are 55% of the way there, will the department urgently conduct such a study? Because otherwise in my mind, we're just drifting and we don't have a benchmark to say, well, since the publication of the NDP, this department has managed to achieve that we've achieved a certain percentage towards our end goal in 2030. Thank you, Chairperson. I hope you could hear all of that. If not, I'll post it.
Thank you, Honorable Prataseth. We could hear you. I hope other colleagues on the platform did the same. Then let's move on to Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Greetings to you, honorable members and the Deputy Minister, DG and the team, and also members of or staff of the committee and Parliament in general. The second time that we're meeting with the department, some of us are still learning what its mandate is. See the presentation talks about issue of planning, monitoring, and evaluation. I'm also of the view that we should also be getting, as Honorable Team is suggesting, what is it that in each of the department, the department, the DPME has been able to monitor and evaluate. As he correctly say that it's not an implementing department, but it should highlight to us as members that these are the issues that we pick up in each of the departments, nationally, provincially, as well as at the local government level, especially at local government level. There are so many challenges with regard to that level or sphere. So we hope that we could get that kind of a report. Other than that, it gives an impression that the department is just monitoring at a higher level. It doesn't monitor what is happening on the ground. It depends on the report that it gets from departments and provinces. I've got that feeling, but then I'm subject to be corrected on that view. Because there are things that are happening on the ground, and then you of the view that these are issues that the department should be picking up and raise with the client departments, and then you see improvement with regard to those issues that are happening on the ground. Yesterday we had questions to economic cluster. Some of the issues that were raised were issues that should have been monitored by the department. For instance, there were questions around the issues of roads that have been affected by the floods in KZN, Eastern Cape, and Northwest. But recently there were floods in Port St. John's, KZN, Free State, and other areas. You will be of the view that the department would come in and perhaps be able, because I see that they also, as part of their program, are monitoring, or they have a disaster management unit that is supposed to be monitoring what is happening, especially on issues of disaster. So that is my starting point. But I want to just go back first to the report that was tabled, the annual report that was tabled by the department towards the end of last year when it was invited to present to the committee. There were issues that were still outstanding that I think it was on the 30th of November. There were issues that were still outstanding that the department was going to update us on. One, it was on the issue of the irregular expenditure that increased from 195,000 to 14.3 million. And also there were investigations that were underway to enable consequence management. And also the department was still in the process of applying for condonation from Treasury. If we could also get a date update on those two matters. On the issue of the merger between Brand SA and SA Tourism, the department said that that matter would be responded to by the executive, that the deputy minister is maybe she can update us on that issue. There were also acting positions, directors and deputy directors. That has now been resolved. And also the issue of irregular appointment. There was a report that was outstanding of irregular appointment that took place between 2018 and 2020. The issue of fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 58,000 and also the 808,000 that were under investigation. If we could get an update with regard to that issue. And then the issue of risk anti-corruption and integrity management implementation plan that was not yet approved by the executive committee. If we could get an update with regard to that. The issue of also of provinces not sending the number of assessment reports as well from the national department. Coming now to questions that relate to the annual performance plan, Chair. I see in terms of I think the program that deals with the sectors, the focusing on TREP and the industrial park. I want to find out why only on TREP and industrial parks in terms of the programs of particularly the economic classes. Why only those two programs when, for example, DTIC has other programs such as the special economic zones, the Black industrialists, as well as a number of other programs. Small business development has TREP, as well as other programs. Why only focusing on TREP and industrial parks? Generally, how does the fact that the DPME does not have a legislation from which it's a mandate, what challenges are they facing as a result of not having a legislation of their own that guides their mandate? The last point is, I think under issue of courts, I think there's a bill that the department wants to bring. I think it's got to do with integrated planning. There's there's a fear on the part of the department. Sorry, there's a plane that is flying over my house here, so it's making a noise. So there's a legislation that is about integrated development. I think integrated development framework, if I'm not mistaken. There's a fear on the part of a department that the provinces, I think, and local government may not be happy with that. Does it mean that that legislation will not then come to Parliament as a result of that fear on the part of the department? Thank you very much for now, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Khai, for an honorable team for those questions. Let me also add a few. Yeah, I think the first one is linked to the question that was raised by Honorable Khai on the program of public sector monitoring. Because in the slide that speaks to that, correctly as pointed out, one would have expected probably even load shedding to be part of that, given the crisis that it is causing, and therefore the need for this also to be on the radar of the DPME, but also I think the economic cluster as a whole, given the importance role that those sectors are playing in terms of addressing the structural challenges that continue to inhibit our growth. So it will be load shedding and also probably more focus on the economic growth, given its importance. The second one then will relate to the question that speaks to the fact that the as you have correctly pointed out, this is the last 12 months of the sixth administration. Concretely, what positive messages the department will be sending to the public out there, given the importance of the National Development Plan when it was envisaged. What key messages can be sent to the public, given the fact that, as you have correctly pointed out, we have not, it's going to be difficult in the next coming 7 years to be able to reach our targets. But I think more than that, we appreciate the fact that the National Development Plan is a living document. I remember that immediately after it was adopted, Chapter 7 was overall, which speaks to our posture on international relations. It was withdrawn, and now I see again that Chapter 3, there is a talk also of the reviewing of Chapter 3. Maybe one could be, the committee could be taken into consideration what could be the motivation around this. but also the importance of social compacting. Is it not an area that also that has to be prioritized as part and parcel of your program, because criticism has been leveled at the pace at which NEDLAC is able to solidify the social compact, because an argument has been raised to say labor, government, and business, they are very critical in terms of addressing the challenges around our economic challenges, and therefore rallying these three partners to commit and also to have a clear focus on the business plan that would have been agreed by these three social compact, because I think it's a matter that one suggests that it has to be on your radar, or what could be the reason as to why is it not on the radar. And then on the administration, of course, mindful of the fact that the issue of the reconfiguration of government is the prerogative of the president. But I guess, given the analysis that we have done in 2019 around the success and challenges that the implementation of the NDP is facing, I suspect that could be one of the areas that that could be on your agenda. Informed by, I remember there's a study that was done at some point which also recommended the need for various departments to align. The first one relates to have, whether it is small business, whether it is economic development, whether it's DTIC, under one roof, but also then entities to be reverted back to their mother department. I think that those are some of the issues that were raised as a possible solution to ensure that there is alignment in terms of the work that we do. Like I said, indicated, this is a matter for the Presidential Council that looks into this aspect. Other than that, the worrying aspect is also the reduction of the budget towards the management of the National Planning Commission over the NTF, the National Planning Coordination. Is this as a result of the constraints of the budget as a whole, or what we call fiscal consolidation? Because this reduction is an explanation, and particularly given the fact that while there is a decrease on this, but on the operation leases there is an increase. There is also an increase towards a program, program 4. Maybe there could be a reason given in terms of this disjuncture. Other than that, let's then allow the team to respond. I see Honorable Dango has his hand up, and then thereafter we'll then give over to the DM. The DM will determine in terms of how the response will be given. whether she will resort to allowing the DG to lead the team, and then thereafter just provide a closing remark. Honorable Dango.
Yes, Chairperson. Chairperson, the potential rationalization of government departments, entities, and programs of the next 3 years was raised during the 2023 State of the Nation address. Current National Treasury estimates are that the country could achieve a potential of 27 billion as a medium term. Now, how is the department going to address that particular question? Not only focusing on the outcome, but really on the issue here is on the output.
Thank you, Honorable Dango. Over to you, GM and the team.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Just on the last issue that that Honorable Dango has just raised on rationalization of government departments, the minister in the presidency is going to lead some of those things, and will make inputs as the department responsible for planning, monitoring, and evaluation. And then, of course, we'll be working very closely with National Treasury. So it is something that is top on our agenda, especially with the new minister and the minister in the presidency, to look at some of those things. Remember, we are also responsible for monitoring and evaluating the SONA pronouncements by the president. So it's one of those things that we're dealing with. The second issue, Chair, it's around the merger between Brand SA and SA Tourism, which honorable member wanted me to also give an update. Like I said, we are now the Department of Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation. So under us, we don't have any entity. So everything has been migrated to the minister in the presidency. We'll also look at progress on that, because those are some of the things that from monitoring and evaluating point of view, we need to also track on progress made. I think the last one, depending on what members, what the select committee would want, we can be able to give you the historical information on what has been happening, especially around, maybe let me make the committee to see me as well.
Yes.
Because I've been hearing that, maybe you can see. So that you see that I'm at work, I'm in office working. So I'm just saying, on the breakdown of what we have recommended, especially when departments were bringing APPs and all other related things, we have a historical report that we can share with members, and the current engagements, they have to go through cabinet, and then we can come back to the select committee to update you and table accordingly. So yeah, we will be guided by you on the historical, and then if you want the latest, they are in the pipeline. So once they go through cabinet, then we'll bring them. It is important, and it's a very important issue, and that's why we also want to fast track the issue of legislation so that everybody can be aligned accordingly and ensure that planning is centrally located and everybody complies accordingly. So the rest of the things, our DG is going to lead them. And if members of the portfolio of the select committee allow me, I'm now getting into another Zoom meeting, and I think Honorable Mimang, you'll release me so that I then get into another meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Indeed, we appreciate your presence and your attendance, and you are released for another engagement. Thank you, dear. DG, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Chairperson. Chair, I will deal with few questions quickly and allow a number of colleagues to speak. Just to indicate what the colleagues will do, we have the DDG for planning coordination, who is going to speak just on the planning system, just to indicate how we interact with departments, how we intervene in the planning.
As the DG responds, your video on, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, Chair, I was saying that the DDG of planning coordination who's in the meeting is going to speak on how we interact with departments, how we make inputs, how we guide departments during the planning processes, so that you can have a sense of how we intervene. But if there is a request for further information on whether we're getting joy from those interactions, we can supplement that. The DDG for monitoring, sector monitoring, is also going to speak on how we do monitoring, how we get feedback from departments, and how we ensure that there is implementation. There is the Secretary of the National Planning Commission is going to speak on matters related to the NDP, the current work that they are doing, the assessments that are being done by the National Planning Commission. So she's in this meeting. The CFO will deal with financial matters. And next to me here, the DDG for corporate services will deal with other matters that relates to corporate services. Just very quickly from my side, on the issues raised by Honorable Khai, I wish to deal with the following. Whether we receive information from departments and just use that information without verification.
The DG can switch its video off.
Oh, yes, but okay. Okay, thank you, Chair. So I understand that all colleagues will just switch on their videos as they introduce themselves, and then they can switch off. Thank you. Now, very quickly on the issues raised by Honorable Khai, on the relationship with the government departments, whether we receive information from them and just publish what they give us, the answer is no, we don't do that. Of course, we engage with departments for the purposes of verifying what we have been monitoring, what we have been observing. So that is not tantamount to asking them to tell us what to say. And that will be seen in the reports that we'll be sharing with the committee. Then on the other matter related to roads, particularly in the provinces, one of the things that we're going to do this year, which is not necessarily in the APP because we take it as operational issue, is to sign service level agreements with the offices of the Premier in the different provinces, because they also have a similar mandate to that of DPME. So there is a lot of work that also need to be done at that level so that we can improve the sharing of information, because the offices of the Premier in the different areas are always on the ground to see what is happening. So they are replicas of what DPME is, although they are smaller than DPME. So we want to improve on that, but on specific monitoring reports, we can come back to yourselves and give you a further detail. Then on the issue around industrial parks versus SEZ, we have already done some work on SEZ and made some recommendations. But overall, DPME working with the DBSA, the Development Bank of Southern Africa, are currently finalizing the evaluation of the entire ERRP, the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program, which was launched by the President a while ago. So in that work, we are going to deal with a whole lot of other economic issues. So there is that process that is ongoing. But in addition to that, we are looking at the industrial parks. And the reason why we've emphasized on the industrial parks is that they are in the rural areas, particularly the former homelands. There is still infrastructure in some areas that can be harnessed to achieve local economic development in those areas. So that's why we're emphasizing on this. And while we are working on the bigger construct, that is the evaluation of the economic reconstruction and recovery program of government, which will be concluded this month, and we'll be willing to share with Parliament our own findings on the overall economic performance of government. Then going to the issues that I will deal with raised by, I would say, Honorable Tim. I'm struggling with the surname, so my apology for that. One, in the reduction in the research budget, we will agree with you that this is putting strain on the work of many colleagues in the department, because we have to ask them to do quite a lot of things and programs with limited resources. DPME lost 29 funded positions during COVID. So when Treasury was looking for money to finance our interventions or our responses to the pandemic, they had to cut budgets and were severely affected as DPME, as we lost 29 positions that were already funded. And now there is a risk that should there be further budget cuts, if we were to get to that situation, both the DPME and the National Planning Commission will be on their knees with nothing to do. So we once again ask Parliament to pay attention to our situation on how budget cuts severely affect our own performance. Then, as to why we have many people in the department and less money for research, I've already indicated one part of it. But the other part is that we always hire experts, such that most of the work that we do in the National Planning Commission and DPME is done internally. So it's just opposed with the earlier a response that I have given. So the DDGs that I've indicated will deal with the issues that I've mentioned. The last point from my side is that of social compacting. We have been engaging, or we have engaged the Department of Employment and Labor on this matter of social compacting. And our view is that while there is a big attempt to have one social compact, we are also advising that sectors must have their own social compacts, so that there is a big one, but then there are also subsidiary ones that speak to the different sectors. So we have made that recommendation to the Department of Employment and Labor. And when we go to report to Cabinet on the performance of government as at the end of March, last March, we will also deal with this issue. And DM has already made a commitment that that report will also come to Parliament so that we can detail the current state of things with regard to the performance of government. Now, Chair, with your permission, let me quickly ask Dr. Grisel to speak on planning matters so that we can highlight what it is that we do and how we interact with departments. And after that, it will be DDG Makgomo Tshatsinde, followed by the Secretary of the National Planning Commission, and then the CFO and the DDG Corporate Services. With your permission, Chair, thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, Honourable Chair and Honourable members. Let me take up the issues around planning as indicated by the DG. If I may put off my video. I think firstly, the DPME is the custodian of the overall country planning system, which consists of multiple components. And we would be very happy to present that to the Select Committee. at any point, because I think that it does consist of many different parts, including the National Development Plan, the MTSF, and the annual performance plans, of course. So you have your long, medium, and short-term planning, but then you also have national, provincial, and local government plans that we're all aware of. The new addition since 2019 is obviously the District Development Model 1 plans, which are a critical component of the DDM, but does not constitute the DDM. And then, of course, we have sectoral plans, for example, the National Infrastructure Plan, etc., as well as the institutional plans, the operational plans, and the program plans. And then, of course, the spatial development plans are very, very critical. We have the National Spatial Development Framework. And then, of course, at a local government level, you also have spatial development frameworks and the IDPs, and then the annual local government plans in terms of the service delivery and budget implementation plans. Now, we have introduced a number, because I think the question around, how does DPME exert its influence? And we do have quantitative and qualitative data around that. One of the approaches that we use in DPME is theory of change. So in other words, DPME would have developed its own theory of change in terms of how does DPME contribute towards improving the country's development results. And that is then what informs us. And some of the reforms that we've introduced, we have the policy framework for integrated planning. That was approved by Cabinet. That also looks at the way in which the different components of the planning system fit together, so that we have alignment as indicated of the NDP with the MTSF, with the departmental plans and so on and so on, but also the very important issue of the district development model. The annual performance plans, a lot of these priorities do get expressed within the annual performance plans. We have focused on those for 23-24. We've done, so that those plans are actually able to deliver on the development priorities, but in 2023-24, but also laying the basis for improving the results in the medium to long term. So we did issue a circular around the, particularly based on the Cabinet decisions, the government priorities. We have an APP self-assessment rating tool, which departments have used to do their own self-assessments. And that takes into account both the issues of alignment with the revised framework for strategic plans, which speaks to the methodology of how planning should be undertaken at an institutional level. And then we've also had various rounds of assessment of the draft APPs. The first one, gives direct feedback to the accounting officers of national and provincial departments, but we've also then done subsequent analysis of alignment, including, for example, alignment with the State of the Nation address commitments, so that we actually ensure that those commitments that are made by the President in the State of the Nation address indeed find their way, particularly those of an output strategic nature, find their way into not just the APPs of departments, but also into the budgets of departments. So we look at alignment, and we've got the actual figures. I can talk to some of them. We look at alignment with the medium-term strategic framework. We develop an annual budget prioritization framework, which goes throughout the budget process, which is able to look at the extent to which influence the alignment of budgets, which remains a decision of Treasury, but alignment of budgets with the priorities of government. We also look at alignment. The DG has just spoken about the economic reconstruction and recovery program. We look at alignment of the APPs, because there's no point in having a program of that nature if it doesn't find its way into the APPs, so that it can then also be monitored, including by Parliament, but also focusing on expanding employment. We've also introduced some new elements, for example, the issue of the Just Transition Framework, which is very new. It was adopted by Cabinet last year, but we feel that given the threat of climate change, the need to promote more sustainable development, that Just Transition Framework should also find its way ultimately into the plans of national and provincial departments, as well as public entities, the many public entities, as well as issues such as the National Infrastructure Plan. We know that we are supposed to be having an infrastructure-led economic recovery, so those are very important. And then, of course, the district development model and the one plans. This is something which national and provincial departments are still adjusting to, that they need to increasingly develop their ability to spatialize their planning, so not just have an aggregated planning at a national level, but be able to disaggregate their interventions within districts and metropolitan areas, but also ultimately also work towards the spatialization of budgets of all spheres of government. Risk mitigation is very important, and then disaster risk reduction. So there are multiple areas of influence that we seek to ensure. We have been working with DCOG just on the issue of the District Development Model 1 plans. We have been working closely with DCOG in analyzing the first generation 1 plans, and we have had sessions with provinces also on the feedback, the lessons that they have learned in terms of the 1 plan processes, and that includes, and it's to be expected that the first generation 1 plans would not be perfect. Some of the issues that need to be improved is, as I've said, the participation of all of government in the development of those 1 plans, because those 1 plans are supposed to be medium to long-term plans. So you need all spheres of government, public entities, state-owned companies should also be participating in the development of those 1 plans, so that we can, that each district and metro can have a much more integrated, coherent planning, but also participation of society. The 1 plans are supposed to include participation of business, civil society. The spatial issue around the 1 plans is critical, particularly in the context of the National Spatial Development Framework, as well as the provincial spatial development frameworks. And then, the issue of catalytic projects, because catalytic projects are critical drivers in particular spaces. One can mention, for example, the green hydrogen project in the Northern Cape in Boegoebaai area, which is a massive project with huge potential. So those are just some of the responses that I would like to give at this time. But with the minister's support, we can certainly provide more detailed inputs, including quantitative and qualitative assessment, for example, on the alignment of APPs with the various policy frameworks. Thank you.
Okay, Chair, with your permission, DDG Mahomo, just briefly.
Thank you very much, DG, for the opportunity. I'm using a small gadget. I hope the chair and the members of the committee can see my face. Due to network challenges, let me remove my face, stop the video. I'm using a small gadget. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, thank you very much. Let me thank you, Chair, and the members, the honorable members of the committee, for giving me this opportunity, for briefly, as DG said, outline what we do. I'm responsible for sector monitoring services. I want to emphasize the use of the sector monitoring, because we are not just monitoring what departments are doing, but we are monitoring, we're really, going out there to look at what are we achieving as government in terms of the priorities of the country, nationwide. So we're not only looking at departments, but we're looking at all sectors. I'm responsible for monitoring of the 7 priorities of government, together with the public sector monitoring, which is involved with the priority 1, capacity of the state. And my role, is to bring together in all of these 7 priorities, and report to cabinet as to how are we doing as a country. As we know, the MTSF, is a medium-term strategic framework. When you look at it, within it also encapsulates all what is in the APPs, and it also draws a lot in terms of what is in the NDP. So in short, the MTSF is a 5-year, chunks of the implementation of the NDP. So the information that we collect and the monitor also feedback into how the National Development Plan is being implemented, as well as achieved or not achieved. Basically, DG has already touched on how we do the monitoring a little bit, that we are not looking at only inputs from the departments. I think that is a data set which is important, because it is administrative data. But we also have got, we are independently looking at, all various information which we can receive from, quite a number of, research institutes, information from Stats SA, information which we ourselves go, and do field work and do case studies, out there, in the communities. And we work together as the whole of DPME, from planning to monitor to evaluation, to use those kind of information, with frontline, monitoring. They're always in the field. So that is also our footprint. In terms of how we work with departments, sector monitoring has got outcome facilitators. Outcome facilitators are our footprint in the departments. They work together with the departments all the time to ensure that the MTSF, the APPs, and the NDP is implemented to a large extent. So when we report to the cabinet, we report on what has been achieved. I think earlier on when we did our presentation, we also looked at the result chain, and Dr. Chrysel talked a lot about theory of change. And then I want to come to the result chain, looked at result chain. So if we look at where we report, we report on outcomes and impacts, because we also take into consideration all the inputs, the budgets, as well as the activities which are happening, and the outputs. So the whole of that result chain, that was used there, that we look into that information and come up with a determination as to whether we are reaching achieving what we have planned to achieve or not achieving. After we've reported to the cabinet, we do that. We saw there's a biannual report. We do that on a 6-monthly basis, but on a quarterly basis, we receive reports, and we work with the departments. As I said, almost continuously. As we know, monitoring is a continuous process, so continuously work with the departments. And then after we have reported to the cabinet, we come back. I think there was a question as to whether we do follow-ups. We do follow-ups in terms of what has been implemented and not implemented, what has been achieved, not achieved. We write letters to minister to ministers, cluster chairs, DG to DGs, in terms of the recommendations which we have made, as well as what the cabinet has actually resolved that needs to be done. So that becomes an effective tool, of following up, in terms of what, was not achieved, and we report back, as part of our reporting process as we report into the next cycle of the what we call it a POE reporting. So that takes about 2 to 3 days, work, with cabinet reporting on every aspect of the MTSF 7 priorities. So basically, in a nutshell, we do that in length. So the methodology which we are using, because we are using multiple sources of information, multiple instruments, to verify our information, we do triangulation. So it's very difficult to get out of, if we are saying we confirm that performance has happened or not happened, to get out of it, because it has been verified from different angles. And that helps us to become independently be able to do our work without, interference by any other person, in the work which we do. And the most important part of it is that the results thereof, we are able to say we have got evidence. We also use the evidence which comes from the evidence unit, as well as the evaluations which have been implemented, and that becomes part of our feedback. And that is also connected to we talked about in public sector monitoring, the assessment of ministers and DGs. So the input towards those assessments, it comes from this MTSF 7 priorities, outcomes of what we have been monitoring and what we report. Our reports are available, and fortunately, most of the portfolio committees, they invite us to come and present whenever the departments are presenting their annual reports, so that we can give them an overview, a bigger picture, as well as where that department input into what we do. So far now, we've done the midterm report in the previous year. We can share the information with you as well. And then currently we're looking towards the 30-year review, of government. So that is a big project which we will be doing. After we've done in 2019, reference was made to the 2019 reports of the 25-year review. So in a nutshell, this is basically the core of the monitoring element in DPME. Thank you very much.
Chair, with your permission, the Secretary of the National Planning Commission, with your permission.
Secretary.
Good day, Chair and honorable members, and thank you for the opportunity. I will turn off the camera and just respond to the few issues around the National Development Plan, National Planning Commission, and how we have measured the implementation of the National Development Plan. So I think it is also relevant that I come after Mema Kgomo has spoken about how they monitor the work, because most of the report that we implement are based on harvesting mostly from the reports that they provide. So the first report that I would want to speak to around the monitoring of the implementation of the National Development Plan was established in 2018. It was called the Monitoring and Implementation. And in that report, it was really just to say, in the first 6 years of implementation of the NDP, how have we come? And it was based on what we call the 119 actions that were highlighted. At the time, the major issue that was realized was that implementation is underway, fragmented, no alignment, no coordination, and the major issue was how do we help and advise government to coordinate better. And that's where some of the work that started in terms of creating some of the framework and advices to implement better. We were at about 30% of the actions, not indicators, that were on track at the time. But that also gave birth to what we implemented between 2019 and 20, which was the NDP review, the first review of the progress in terms of implementation of the NDP that was published in 2020. In that review, it shows that the economy is not growing to change the lives of the people. It was showing that in 2019, there were inroads that were made in the social sector. Particularly, we would see the life expectancy that was reaching about 75 years. We were seeing that education was approaching universal access. But the issue was the quality of education, even if we saw that access was increasing, the issues of attainment and the issues of the numbers of PhDs and those people that, the goals that were there, the issues around TVETs that were increasing, but the quality of infrastructure that was not perfect or not, that was not moving as meant to be. So the social sector was seen to be making inroads, and we can say that after that, we realized that the inroads are affected by the COVID, but I will come to that. Then when we looked at the critical issues of governance and how government organizes itself, the critical issues were about the capacity of the state, which has been even in the report seen to be a bit moving south. The capacity is declining. The capability of the state has been sort of challenged by issues including crime, including mainly corruption within the public service, and most of the expected goals have not been met, but we can make an exception that the government had already started to put into place measures to ensure building a capable state in terms of implementing what they asked for, as appointing the head of the public service in the presidency. The framework for professionalization of the public service is underway, and the advice to the department and School of Government is nothing else but to fast-track implementation. So those are some of the things that we have been doing. After 2020, we have been tracking the indicators. We have about 78 indicators that we have pulled together to use to measure. So on our website, again, you will see in December 2021 and in December 2022, working and harvesting from the reports that are produced by DPME and other sources, we produce a report that is called Implementation of the NDP Indicators, which in December 2021 and 2022, we would share with the department, DPME, and work with the departments that we think are not pulling properly, but we will talk to that again. The third part that we are currently working on after 21-22, we have decided that every year we will publish that a list of indicators. And I can say as of 2022, we had about 50 of the 78 indicators that, yes, are on track, and others are achieved. And I can say that there are a few of the indicators. I know that the benchmark is 2030, but some of the indicators are already met. We had hoped that by 2030, the population of South Africa would be at about 58 million. We are talking about 60 million of people in South Africa already, and that calls for South Africa to start looking at the impact of that population growth that has gone very fast in terms of the economy and how the resources in the country can be allocated. We have also seen that the numbers that have been there in terms of the people that are accessing even the social protection have increased, but the numbers of poverty, inequality, and unemployment have continued to go south. So those are the critical issues that we're saying. Some are met, some are not met. And the basic three that are being fought against, which is poverty, inequality, and unemployment, are the ones that continue to be stubborn and are not moving in any way. Therefore, the country might still consider that those become the priorities even beyond 2030, but they should be accelerated between now and 2030. The last question, the last issue that I think was what study is in place. We are now finalizing what we call the 10-year review of the implementation of the National Development Plan, which was supposed to be 2022. So we will be bringing that information back to say first 10 years of implementation of the National Development Plan. This is how we have fared as the country, and continue to advise the country in terms of how it should better implement, where we are failing, and where we are understanding the challenges that are brought by COVID and many other aspects of disasters that were not thought of or could not have been predicted before. So the last part that I wanted to talk to was the issues of the recommendations that have been implemented so far. I think a good number of them, starting with the recommendations that the NPC even makes to DPME that have been implemented on the bill that DPME is working on, the issues of how to institutionalize planning is moving in the correct direction. On the matters on water security, there is a report that has been given to the department. And when we look at the manner in which the water security is dealt with, it is in line with the advices that came from the NPC. The energy paper that was produced in 2018 has even given a light to some of the advices that are even currently being undertaken, including last year, in terms of dealing with load shedding. The presidential coordinating, Presidential Climate Commission that we have today was a recommendation from the National Planning Commission that went to the Department of Environment, and that's how we have it implemented. And that is about making sure that the country is able to move towards a low carbon economy. The issue on professionalization of the public service and building a capable state, the role of the PSC, what we have seen now is that there is a bill. The recommendations from the National Planning Commission in terms of the NHI, which is about moving towards universal health for all, we are seeing some of the recommendations being undertaken. We sent, I think, in 2021, recommendations about the implementation of the National Spatial Development Framework. That, yes, will be moving to DPME, but when that was released, it was released by the Department of Land Reform, and such advice was sent there. And we are also working with the Department of National Treasury and DBSA on helping and understanding how the evaluation of the ERRP can be done. So most of these recommendations that are made, I think, are seen to be making traction, are taken on board. And yes, we do take this as a long term, and we will quantify all this as we move along. So the last report that I think can be looked forward to is when we publish the 10-year review of the National Development Plan. We will make sure that we socialize it across society, with the private sector, with civil society, but particularly with Parliament, so that it helps us with the public participation on that particular report, but again, rallying the rest of society behind the implementation of the National Development Plan.
CFO.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Chair and the members.
Good.
On the question of the budget of Program 1 being top heavy, yes, it may seem to be top heavy. However, one needs to mention that that budget accounts for the budget allocation of the three principals, besides the Office of the DG and the DPG. And it also accounts for rental property for payment of rent. It also accounts for the payment of external auditors. It also accounts for payment of external auditors. And during the AENE, National Treasury intends to take back the budget that was allocated to the other DM, so it will reduce a little bit. But because of the nature of Program 1, that is why it seems to be like it's most of the budget, material budget is allocated in that. In terms of the question of Honorable Khai, the irregular expenditure, the total irregular expenditure for the 2021-22 financial year it spiked materially because of the transaction of 14 million. For that transaction, the department is still in progress of investigating the transaction. As soon as the report is issued and the investigation is finalized, I'm sure the accounting officer will apply or implement consequence management. But for the other transactions that formed part of the balance, the closing balance of irregular expenditure, consequence management investigations were conducted, consequence management was implemented. Some of the transactions that the accounting officer is delegated to condone have been condoned, and some of the transactions we've written to Treasury to request condonation. The same with fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Investigations were conducted, consequence management was implemented. Some of the transactions recovery has been initiated in terms of taking on the debts, and some have been condoned. In terms of the budget that is reducing, unfortunately, honorable members, this is what we're seeing generally, nationally in the country, because of the fiscal constraints. All the departments had to take budget cuts. So in each program, the department, in all the programs, the 5 programs, we all had to take budget cuts. In some programs, they seem to be material. In others, they don't look material, but all the programs had to take budget cuts. And that is due to the general national fiscal constraint. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Tom Nkosi. I'm going to respond on just one issue which was raised, namely the irregular appointment which happened between 2018 and 2020. We would like to report that indeed we have there are processes, although we must admit that there have been some delays which resulted after the chairperson of the hearing fell ill for a very lengthy period, and we had to restart the process and get a new chairperson. But though we are in constant contact with the PSC, which are the ones which brought the matters to their attention, and we are reporting to them on a regular basis. Thank you very much.
Chair, that concludes our responses.
Thank you, DG, for those responses from your team. As there's a hand from Mr. Clement Madale.
Okay, thank you, Chair. There are 2 questions that are in the chat, which were not responded to. I think they are from Brenda.
Oh, yeah, Honorable Matebula. Yes, I hope, can you respond to that, Madale? Or you want to, can the DG assign them to one of the team? I should have brought it to your attention.
Thank you, Chair. Now, we had picked the questions when he was asking them, and we have responded to the questions. If they is referring to the questions raised by Honorable Tim, it's just that he was not sure whether we had him, and he asked to augment by writing here, but we have dealt with the question.
There's a question from Honorable Matebula, whether the department has received in audits for the past financial year, and what plan did the department put in place to protect those who report corruption? Those are the 2 questions from Honorable.
Okay, no, thank you, Chair. My apology. Now, we'll deal with the questions quickly. Yes, we have received clean audits, so we have kept to that. And we look forward to another clean audit. We know that we're a small department, but it is true to say that not all small departments and entities always get clean audits. So we want to get clean audits. And one of the things that we are doing now, we are working with service delivery departments to also assist them, in our interventions. So there's work that we are also doing to support others. Now, on the issue of disclosures, at DPMA, we follow prescripts that people who disclose wrongdoing must be protected. So we do that in our department, and we have not had a complaint of us having done something that is untoward to those who disclose. But what we have seen now, as Mr. Nkosi was indicating, is that colleagues have preferred to go to the Public Service Commission, and we get a lot of disclosures through the Public Service Commission. So that's what has been happening in short. Chair, we do talk to the Public Service Commission at another level to check the extent to which their system can also be used by state entities beyond the public service. And they have indicated that they are available to also deal with complaints that come from state entities other than the departments, which we think is a good thing. So I, as DG Chair, I can safely say that I do not have a problem with colleagues going to the Public Service Commission. It's one of the measures that have been introduced by the democratic state to deal with its challenges. But internally, yes, we also do receive complaints or disclosures, and we attend to them. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, for responding to that question from Honorable Matebula. Let me just find out from honorable members. I get a sense that your team has done justice to the questions that were posed by honorable members, DG. And on that note, I believe that from this engagement, the Select Committee is much more prepared now, because as Honorable Hayes indicated, this is our second engagement with the department. And emerging from this briefing, we're much more clearer in terms of where the department is going, right from its vision and mission and the mandate, which includes the institutionalization of planning, the monitoring and implementation, the evaluation of critical government programs, but also interventions that we are making on behalf of the cabinet. And we're able to outline to us key departmental risks that informs the APP, and took us into confidence also in terms of a number of your program indicators from the administration, National Planning Commission Secretariat, the sector monitoring services, the public sector monitoring and capacity development, evaluation of evidence and knowledge management system, and lastly, the budget. And the responses that were given by your team, DG, has amplified all those key indicators that are at the thrust of the work of the department. And before I see the hand of Honorable Khai is up, I'll give over to Honorable Khai. But also maybe key also maybe just one follow up. The challenges at local government level captured in the State of the Nation address, which raises a number of municipalities that are functional, but also the work of the department. How does it find expression at the provincial level? Because while at the national level, in terms of also functions and powers. There are a number of areas where mostly, let me say mostly, we are responsible for policy formulation. And sometimes because of the nature of our government, you rely on the provincial government to implement those policy positions. And sometimes you'll find this juncture. What comfort can you give to the select committee? Because our focus as the NCOP is more provincial based and also local government informed, because the work that you are doing is different from the work of the portfolio committees. So therefore it becomes critical in terms of emphasis given on the interventions that you are making at provincial level and also at local government level. Of course, mindful of the fact that there are 3 spheres of government that are separate, distinct, but interdependent, but also Chapter 4 of the cooperative government also informs the working relationship between all of these three spheres. But I think critical to that is the fact that the Constitution makes a clear, distinct work of these 3 spheres, which definitely, in terms of the interface that we are making, it must take that into account. Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I think some of the issues that I just wanted to follow up on, you've addressed them. The footprints in the provinces. I think yesterday the Minister of Electricity was indicating that when he was ahead of the infrastructure, what they did, they look at the investment that is taking place in the country. Found out that mainly investment goes to Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, eThekwini, and Cape Town in the Western Cape. So there's a problem of spatial development, particularly in rural areas. I think it's a matter, maybe I don't know the question now, it's a matter that especially the NPC should look at and also see how the provincial development plans, some are called provincial growth and development plans, how are they integrated to the NDP? And also this issue of ensuring that economic development takes place outside the 3 main care corridors in all across the departments. This is also what perhaps the DPME should be looking at in terms of the budget of departments as to where does it go to. For instance, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has a budget of 10.9 billion. Can DPME check where does that 10.9 billion go to? You find that it goes to the 3 provinces. The very little that goes to other provinces, especially rural provinces. But in addition to that, this issue also of, in terms of the monitoring of DPME, especially I agree with you on provinces, implementation of policies and service delivery in provinces. I just want to check the consequence management at the level of provinces, where you find that there would be monies or budget allocated for infrastructure, for example, for schools, but there would be monies, millions that are returned to Treasury because they have not been used yet. You have huge challenges around infrastructure in provinces. what does the DPM do with regard to such issues and its recommendation for consequence management? Because you still find that those people fail to use the money that is allocated, still remain in those positions, because there's no consequence management. I'm not sure if the DPME has a role with regard to that in terms of recommending a consequence management, even at to a higher level, if they don't have such powers. But the other issues that is specific to the responses around wasteful, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I thought that we're going to get specific responses. For example, the issue of 808,000 that was related to damage to a vehicle. I think the response there was a general. It was just a response around the issue of wasteful expenditure in general. We wanted responses specifically on that 808,000, the vehicle that has been damaged. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Khai. DG, let me just check. Yes, DG.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thanks to Honorable Khai. I will just run through some of the issues that have come up, and if there is time, one or two colleagues can pick on others. But just to assure you that we are paying attention to the situation in the provinces. We are paying attention to what is happening in the provinces. So DDG, Dr. Grisel, did speak about some of the coordination platforms that have been created by ourselves. So when the provinces plan, they follow the MTSF and the guidelines of DPME. So there is no difference in how provinces and national departments plan, because they follow the similar guidelines through the instruments that we have created at the DPME. Then, Chair, in my response earlier on, I indicated that one of the things that we need to do, or we're going to do, is to ensure that we enter into service level agreements with the premier's offices in the different provinces. We need to do that so that the DGs at that level should take certain responsibilities to augment what DPME is doing, so that DPME with less than 400 people, including the Planning Commission, will certainly not be everywhere. So what I think I need to do is pursue that and ensure that at the provincial level, we strengthen the institutions that, and as indicated by Dr. Grisel, we do coordinate with the provinces, but we need to bring the DGs to be on board, because one of the concerns that we have as DPME is that we do many referrals from the presidential hotline, but only to find that the rate of responses from provinces have not been satisfying. So we need to include that in our engagement with the provinces. So I can assure you that we'll spearhead this issue and ensure that there is some complementary relationship between ourselves and the provinces. The other issue around rural development. Chair, I need to indicate that the rural development strategy has been finalized. And we have an engagement set for early next week, wherein we are going to be engaging with the Department of Land and Rural Development and Agriculture to discuss the implementation of the rural development strategy. One of the observations, as the Honorable Khai says, that we have made is that there are departments that end up being seen as if they are urban departments and not rural departments. And the case in point is that of the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition. We have raised this point previously, even at the level of cabinet, that all departments have to be involved in rural development, including a DTIC. So that is the matter that we are seized with. We are engaging, as I've indicated, with the relevant department on the implementation of the rural development strategy. So something that we'll have to fast track. Now on local government, there are many issues that we have observed in local government. The big one, of course, is about political admin interface. This remains a very big challenge that we have to deal with. And I think at some point, together with DCOG, cooperative governance, may have to come back to this level to have a serious discussion on this issue with yourselves on what can be done going into the next administration, because this will require some kind of changes. We have done everything, I think, at the administrative level, but there are still challenges. In the last few years, we have focused on the following. One is disaster management. Colleagues have indicated that if necessary, we can come back to present to the committee on what we have done to assist with disaster management. At this point in time, we are leading the review of the entire disaster management system in the country. So instead of solving specific problems, which COGTA does, we have focused on systemic issues, the structure of things, whether, for instance, the current disaster management system in South Africa is working, and we found that it has serious gaps. And until we fix it, we'll have the kind of problems that we are having. We spoke also about the DDM. I will not repeat on this. There is an issue around water, where we have gone to cabinet to indicate that the problems that we are having in electricity are likely to happen in water. We see this in the sense that many municipalities are currently struggling to pay the water boards. Now, the question is, when that happens, what are we going to do? And our recommendation was that we need to rethink the way municipalities are funded, because most of them are struggling to generate revenue, and the current situation in the electricity industry will make matters worse. So we are looking into something like that. We've made recommendations that we need to start thinking about protecting the water sector. Then there have been issues around Section 139, which is used by provinces to intervene in local government. There have been questions as to whether that is effective. We dealt with one case in this regard, and that was in Northwest, where we saw a government that was under administration. The provincial government was under administration, but it wanted to put municipalities under administration. So some entity under administration wanted to put another under administration. And during that period, we had to intervene in this area. We see now there is something interesting happening in Limpopo, where the Mopani district has taken the premier to court, saying that the premier can't place the district under Section 139. So those are the things that we will see as they happen on ad hoc basis. Then special development, one of the DDGs indicated that we have developed a national special development framework, which needs to be translated to local spaces. So what colleagues are going to do is to identify areas or municipalities that need our support so that they can also have their own special development frameworks that will ensure that we resolve challenges that we face in those areas. Because part of the problem why we have disaster is because people can locate anywhere. Government has lost control in a number of areas where people can locate wherever they want to locate, some in rivers, some in flight lines, and we saw this in the case of KZN in the main. Lastly, Chair, to emphasize this point, we have been struggling with the situation in Dielpan in the Northwest for the same reason, where people for a very long time stayed in a particular area which they thought was safe, only to find that when we are struck by disaster like flooding, it turns out that those areas are unsafe. But then you struggle when you must take them to another area because they make demands and say, okay, if you take us from where we've been staying, then we want decent housing. Now that will encourage people to stay in unsafe places because they know that when government intervenes during disasters, they are going to get better settlements. So the approach of DPME is not to solve individual problems, but is to assist in ensuring that spatial challenges are resolved throughout the Republic, particularly in those areas where people can settle wherever they want to settle. So I think I have covered most of the issues, but if there are specific issues that I have not dealt with, Chair, we are willing to write down through the minister. We can be guided by yourself as you close the discussions on which areas will require written submissions through the minister, and we are going to do that. But we value this engagement, Chair, and whenever we're required to give you any information we will then do so as DPME. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, for coming back to clarify those follow-up questions. I believe at this point in time, as the Select Committee, we are happy with the manner in which the team has responded to the questions and discussion points that were raised. And allow me to take this opportunity on behalf of the Select Committee to indeed extend a word of gratitude to all of you, and also wish you a good afternoon as you continue with your work. And also from our side, I believe that there's only one item that we need to finalize as we release you, DG, and your team, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The one item that we need to deal with, an update on the trip. Kubela, can you give us a briefing, or should we give it to Dr. Clark?
No, it's okay, Chair. She will add where I have missed. Chairperson and members, we are still in progress with regard to the trip. What I can report is that Germany has reverted us back to us in terms of the stakeholders that they're engaging. If you can just allow me to share this document, Chairperson, from Germany. This is the document, Chair, from Germany so far. That they're in the process of, getting hold of these stakeholders. If I can give, for example, the Office Coordinator of the Federal Government for Maritime and Tourism, they have sent their request on the 26th, and they're still waiting for the response. German Cooperative, I can't pronounce German, you can see. The request is being considered. Germany Trade and Invest, the request was sent, still waiting for the response. With all other stakeholders, that is Germany. With regards to UK, we are still waiting. There's nothing tangible from UK, but what at least we've agreed as the team, because we can see that time is right, it's no longer on our side. We are now in the process of, getting quotations for logistics, because that's where we are, and I can request my colleagues to add.
Thank you, Committee Secretary. Dr. Clark.
Yes, thank you, Honourable Chairperson, honourable members. UK has confirmed the availability of Westminster, and they've asked us to give them some further background information. Chair will recall when we had our last engagement with the embassies, their undertaking to us is by that no later than the 14th of May we should be having the final program from both of them, which we will then share with members again at that point. So from the content side, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And then the approval from the Parliament processes, how far is that?
Chairperson,
Yes.
Chairperson, with regard to the approval, yeah, as soon as we receive their quotations, then we will send the approval. We are working on it.
Okay.
So Enrico will have to push the issue of quotations so that we send the approval.
Okay. All right. Any clarification questions from this honorable team and honorable Khalid?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I saw that the program for Germany is trade and industry. The trade and industry part of our select committee heavy. I didn't see anything relating to transport, public works, public service administration, that sort of thing. So I just want to highlight that, we are not just one side of the committee. There's your side too, Chair.
Yeah.
That we should also be looking at transport systems and things like that. And then the other thing is I know myself and Honorable Boshoff still haven't received our DIRCO letters. So if we can just flag that as well, because we need to have an appointment made to go to Home Affairs to sort out our passports, both official and South African. That needs to get done as soon as possible. I was hoping that we could try to do it this week, but maybe next week. But if we can go, then at least that's sorted out. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, with regard to Germany, I was going to make a suggestion that perhaps we need to have a deadline ourselves. Perhaps next week, as Dr. Clark was saying, that they will be responding on the 14th. But then next week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we need to take a decision if there is no progress on the side of Germany to just cancel then Germany talk and then focus on UK, because as Mr. Hlupela is indicating that we may have challenges with regard to approval, because there are a lot of people that need to sign for the approval, and they sometimes are not necessarily available. As we delay submitting the political approval, there are chances of not getting those who are supposed to be signing. So I think by next week we need to take a decision on Chairman. Thank you so much.
Chairperson, I'm sorry. Honorable Khai has covered what I in fact wanted to say, but the ambassador of the UK here in South Africa has indicated that he was available to assist to take things forward. And in Germany, the Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung had indicated that they were
Honorable Dango. Are we together, or is it only myself?
No, we've lost the Honorable Dango.
Okay. Chair, is it possible for maybe to probably jump on this platform that Honorable Dango has indicated? Maybe allow Honorable Dango to organize the meeting for us, for the two of us, and the team, just to try to speed up the processes. Of course, mindful, it can be virtual, I think, if it's possible. Over to you, Chair.
Yes. No, I support that.
Okay, good. Can we then agree that we maybe just a response, Shubega? I think what is critical is our submission must kick in now, must be prepared so that it starts, because remember their number to be the political principle of the institution, then the administration. So I think if that submission can start knocking on the doors, but in addition to that, let's then I think Honorable Dango will help us to in terms of a meeting between ourselves and those and the ambassador as indicated, and then thereafter next week I suspect by the end of next week we should be able to, let's say Wednesday, we should be able to make a finality on the matter. Is that okay?
No, Chairperson, it's okay. It's okay. And also maybe one thing that also will request as a staff, will request you and Honorable Khai to interact, with the political principal, in this case, the chief whip and the chairperson, to say the application is coming, and also then also to inform them that this trip we've started the process last year. It's not that we are delaying so just wanted this.
All right. No, then Honorable Dango.
Yes, sorry, Chairperson, I lost you there, but sometimes the bandwidth goes and comes back. But I will assist where they need to, where I can assist them. But they must please just ask me and tell me when.
Yes, our proposal is that probably next week, if possible, early next week, whether it is Monday, let's try to have a meeting with the ambassador of EU, so that we then try and straighten things up. But I think what will happen will also probably bring the staff, just so that at least those administrative hiccups must be unlocked. Because if all of us are available on Monday, then we can do that. Is that okay, Ambassador? Let me then, on that note, take this opportunity to indeed express.
Sorry,
Yes, Tim?
I just wanted to see if you were going to cover it, and also the DECO letters. Slipeka didn't respond on that. We need those as soon as possible.
On the DECO letter. Slipeka,
oh, yes. Chairperson. Yes, I will have to make a follow-up because I've sent the request to the team who deal with the issues of letters in Parliament. So I will have to make a follow-up again, to see to it that at least, we get the letter as soon as possible.
Okay. The international relations chairperson in the NCP's office, can she help? Can that office help?
Yes, Chair. You mean with regard to passport?
Yes.
Yes, no, they do. It's them actually who issue the letter to Home Affairs.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Can we then, on that note, agree that a follow-up will be made on this matter? But more than that, also then between now and I believe the end of the week, Honorable Dango will indicate or will help us set an appointment and then meet with the team on Monday, so that we are then able, by Wednesday, we should be having much more clarity in terms of where we are. And then again, let me then extend the order to all of you for making this meeting a success, and your input indeed, the inputs were valuable, but also the team from the staff the content advisor, the committee secretary, the researcher, you always to go extra mile to ensure that in terms of our preparations, we are ready for the team. And then the parliamentary communication channel and the parliamentary monitoring group and the public at large. Thank you for attending our meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chair. Right.
Thank you, Chair.